All right, here we go.
Okay.
Hey guys, welcome. It's Nikas, and we're going to do chapter 2 today. This solution. So, right. So the beginning part of the book identifies the problem, right? So the doctor's opinion and Bill's story really identifies what the problem is, like the powerlessness, the fact that I have this thing called alcoholism, which is this two-part disease, the stone cold sober mind trying to get me drunk. Once I actually get drunk, I got a body that tries to keep me drunk, right? So that's the problem, the problem. So then in Bill's story, what we just read though, it identifies what the solution is, and the solution is God. And most people don't want to hear that, but it does say on page 29. It says each individual in the personal stories, talking about the back of the book, but you can also reference this towards each personal stories, each person in their personal stories, meaning like when you give a pitch at AA, when you stand behind the podium and you give your big pitch, which is what Bill really did in his story. He was giving his pitch, right? So it says on page 29, it says, each individual in their personal stories describes in his own language and from his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God. Now, most people don't like to hear that, but truth is, since this is a finding a power greater than me that's going to restore me to sanity program, and not the I'm going to fix myself program, it's like this is what Bill did. He just did is he told you, dude, he was an agnostic. He was all about the spirit of the universe and all sorts of science of mind and stuff, but he was not about the JC and the Sunshine Band. he was just absolutely against that. But then Ebby said, choose a God of your own understanding. And that just opened everything wide open, right? So the fact of the matter is, this is a spiritual program. We are looking for something outside of ourselves that is going to restore us to sanity. So, there is a solution. We of Alcoholics Anonymous know thousands of men and women who are just as hopeless as Bill. Nearly all have recovered. They have solved the drink problem. I have that word solved highlighted because it says solved a number of times in this book, and I fucking love that word because that word means the problem is gone. It's finished. It's the problem is solved, and I don't have to deal with it anymore. So when I first saw that, I was like, oh, Nikas like solved. We are average Americans, all sections of this country, many of its occupants are represented, as well as many political, economic, social, and religious backgrounds. We are people who would normally not mix. This is back in the day when it was all like white men, right? They wouldn't mix. Look at AA today, and it's all, transgender, gay, motorcycle, drug addicts. It's like, yes, we are people that normally would not mix. But there exists among us a fellowship, a friendliness, and an understanding which is incredibly wonderful. We are like passengers of a great liner, the moment after rescue from shipwreck, when camaraderie, joyousness, and democracy pervade the vessel from steerage to captain's table. So, kind of a little Titanic reference here, everybody saw the Titanic movie, right? There's the people up on the top, smoking cigars and looked on their top hats, and there's the people downstairs in their little cages eating like the little mice eating like a piece of cheese and a little piece of bread, and they're all locked in, right? It's like, so there's the whole ship. Everybody's having a completely different experience. However, bring on Mr. Iceberg, put everybody in the water, and guess what? Suddenly, everybody's the same. We are just people fighting for our lives. This whole top hat and this whole piece of cheese, no. What can I do to help you? How can you? It's like everybody just becomes normalized. Unlike the feelings of the ship's passengers, however, our joy and escape from disaster does not subside as we go our individual ways. The feeling of having shared in a common peril is one element of the powerful cement which binds us. But that in of itself would never have held us together as we are now joined. The tremendous fact, right? So the tremendous fact. There's the great fact, the tremendous fact. For every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution, right? So common just simply means that it's available to everybody. Solution means it's the answer. It is like, it's the solve thing, right? It's the thing that solves it. Common solution. We have a way out, which we can absolutely agree. So all those people from captain's table to bottom of the steerage, right? The way out of this thing, everybody can absolutely agree. There's nobody's got some other idea. One solution here, and it's common. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism. An illness of this sort, and we've come to believe it is an illness, involves those about us in a way no other human sickness can. If a person gets cancer, all are sorry for him. No one is angry or hurt, but not so with the friends of the alcoholic with the alcoholic illness. For with it there goes annihilation of all things worthwhile in life. It engulfs all of the lives who touches the sufferers. It brings misunderstanding, fierce resentment, financial insecurity, disgusted friends and employers, warped lives, blameless children, sad wives and parents. Anyone can increase the list. We hope this volume, right, the book, will inform and comfort those who are or may be affected. There are many. Highly competent psychiatrists have dealt with us, have found it sometimes impossible to persuade an alcoholic to discuss his situation without reserve. Strangely enough, wives, parents, and intimate friends usually find us more unapproachable than do the psychiatrist or the doctor, right? So we go to the doctors, we go looking for help, and yet we just clam up. We don't talk. We don't tell them the truth. We don't tell them how bad it is. We don't tell them what we're really doing. We just give them a little bit, right? If I tell you what I want you to know about me, then I'm manipulating you. I'm telling you the truth so you will believe, you will see me in a certain light. And that's how us alcoholics, man, we are freaking really good at manipulating, because we don't want people to think of us other than how we want. And so what do? We just keep the narrative in a real simple way. But the ex-problem drinker who has found this solution, who is properly armed with facts about himself, can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. Until such an understanding is reached, little or nothing can be accomplished. That the man who is making the approach, right? So the person who's recovered and who's approaching the guy who's needs help, right? So the man making the approach has the same difficulty, that he obviously knows what he's talking about, that his whole deportment, it's the way you carry yourself, shouts at the new prospect that he is a man with a real answer, that he has a no holier than thou attitude, nothing whatever except the sincere desire to be helpful, that there are no fees to pay, no access to grind, no people to please, no lectures to be endured. These are the conditions we have found most effective. After such an approach, many take up their beds and walk again. So the person who we're approaching, right? So they see their life through the lens of them, and they don't think that everybody else's life is as bad as theirs, right? So when we show up and we say, hey, and we start joking and laughing and telling jokes about just how bad it was, people are like, whoa, wait, what? What? Because we've all been there too. So of course, we can become quite friendly. We can be quite useful. I mean, you know, all the things that we did in our life, you know, how far down the scale we went, and, you know, not to close the door on it, but you know that those things are actually useful. So my worst war stories, you know, my worst memories turn out to be the most useful things to be helpful.
All right, I got this.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
All right, I'll be here.
Okay.
I'm going to keep talking.
Okay.
None of us make a sole vocation out of this, nor do we think its effective would be increased if we did. We feel that elimination of drinking is but a beginning. A more important demonstration of our principles lies before us in our prospective homes, occupations, and affairs. All of us spend much of our spare time in some sort of effort which we're going to describe. A few of us are fortunate enough to be able so situated that they can give nearly all of their time to this work. If we keep on the way we're going, there is little doubt that much good will result. But the surface of the problem would hardly be scratched. Those of us who live in large cities are overcome by the reflection that close by, hundreds are dropping into oblivion every day. I'm sure, you know, many of you understand that there's like a downtown area in Los Angeles. It's called, it's going blank, but it's No, the district, can't remember. But anyway, it's every city has an area, a barrio, or some place where there's a mission kind of, and it's like there's every city has that. And so the reality is that everywhere in life there are people who are drinking to die. That's what's happening out there. Many could recover if they had the opportunity we have enjoyed. How then shall we present that which has been freely given us? So of those guys that are down there, in the barrios and whatnot, it's like those guys could actually recover if they had the opportunity, if somebody carried this message to them. So it's important. So how should we present that which has been freely given to us? Well, we have concluded to publish an anonymous volume setting forth the problem as we see it, right? Step 1, doctor's opinion, Bill's story. Like, we're going to tell you what the problem is here. We shall bring the task of our combined experience and we shall bring to the task our combined experience and knowledge, right? So back in the flying blind days, right? So before AA was AA and we had an actual program, there was a time when AA was flying blind, and so the first 100, when they wrote their directions down, this is their combined experience, right? This is, they brought the task of their combined experience and knowledge to actually make this program. Should suggest a useful program for anyone concerned with a drinking problem. Of necessity, there will have to be discussions of matters medical, psychiatric, social, and religious. My favorite. We are aware that these matters are, from their very nature, controversial. Nothing would please us so much as to write a book which would contain no basis for contention or argument. Yeah, just like an AA business meeting, right? We shall do our utmost to achieve that ideal. Most of us sense, so this is the definition of real tolerance here. Most of us sense that real tolerance of other people's shortcomings and viewpoints and a respect for their opinions and attitudes which make us more useful to others. So that whole thing there, that's the definition of tolerance. What the hell is tolerance? Well, you just read it. It's having tolerance of other people's viewpoints and shortcomings. If I don't have tolerance, well, guess what? Maybe I'm the intolerant one. Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon our constant thought of others and how we may help meet their needs. So, that's a sort of a nod to sponsorship there. It's like, so our very lives as ex-problem. So now that we don't drink anymore, now that we're recovered, now we got this stuff together, it depends upon our constant thought of like, how can I be helpful? What can I do? I ask God, how can I be helpful to the next alcoholic? And I get intuitively shown if my house is in order. I can't transmit something I don't got, right? So I have to keep this vessel nice and crispy clean. So you may already have asked yourself, why is it that all of us became so very ill from drinking? Doubtless you're curious to discover how and why, in the face of expert opinion, that's doctor's opinion, to the contrary, we have recovered from a seemingly hopeless condition of mind and body. And again, that word seemingly, it's not there. It's in the forward of the first edition. But we have recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. It is in the forward of the first edition that the word seemingly, because it's actually not. It's not really hopeless. It's just, it seems like it is. So, if you're an alcoholic who wants to really get over it, you may already ask yourself, what do I have to do? It is the purpose of this book to answer such questions. Right? So there you go. What's this book for? Well, the purpose of this book is to answer the questions. Specifically, Joe and Charlie, in their Joe and Charlie seminar, they say, so the purpose of this book is to show other alcoholics precisely, specifically, something with clear-cut directions. It's just using words from the book, like precisely, specifically, exactly, with clear-cut directions. We shall tell you what we have done. So we're not going to tell you what you need to do and shake our finger at you and tell you you're bad and you're a bad human being and you're going to get sober or else. No. If you're coming to AA and you're interested in a solution, right? If you've got this troubles, then we will tell you exactly what we have done. That's all. We won't tell you what you got to do. We'll make suggestions, but these are like kind of really important suggestions, kind of like the house is on fire. I suggest you climb out the window and scurry down the side of the house because the house is on fire. So my suggestion is get out, right? So it's that kind of suggestion. There's what is it, 100 and something musts in the big book. Musts just meaning like strongly suggested. It's like these are things that got to happen in order for this recipe to end up in a sobriety cake that is successful. So, before we go into detailed discussion, it may be well to summarize some points as we see them. How many times have people said to us, I can take it or leave it. Why can't he? Why don't you drink like a gentleman? That fellow can't handle his liquor. Why don't you try beer or wine? Lay off the hard stuff. His willpower must be weak. He could stop if he wanted to. Oh, she's such a sweet girl or boy. Why, you'd think he'd stop for her sake. The doctor told him that if he ever drank again, it would kill him. But look, there he is, all liquored up. Now, these are commonplace observations on drinkers, which we hear all the time. So this is what normies, people that do not have this allergy, this unexplainable occurrence of wanting more, people who can have a drink and put it down. That's not me, right?
That's not me either.
That's not me. So people who are normal that can do that, these are the things they say. They're like, what the hell? Just pull yourself up. Just say no. Pull up your bootstraps. Do all that sort of, like, they do not get it. Commonplace observations on drinkers we hear all the time. Back of them is a world of ignorance and misunderstanding. So these people, they're not mean. They're not being mean. They're just ignorant, which just means they're uninformed. That's what this book is for, is to uninform the uninformed, to inform the uninformed. We see that these expressions refer to people whose reactions are very different from ours, right? So I used to tell a story about a friend of mine in Las Vegas who, it was Saturday night and we'd go out dancing and he'd pull out his little bag of meth and he'd like do a little bump in this one, a little bump in this one, and give me a little, and then he'd roll it back up and he'd put it back in his freezer, and that was it. And I'm telling you what, I laid awake all night thinking about that damn little bag in his freezer. He could put that little thing away, right? I couldn't. It's until it's done. All of it, right? Anyway, all right. So right here in the book is going to talk about the 3 different types of alcoholics, right? So it's this is good stuff to know. It's like, so you may not be a real alcoholic. You might be one of these other things. So the first type of alcoholic is the moderate drinker or the moderate user. If you're a drug addict, the moderate user have little trouble in giving it up liquor or drugs entirely if they have a good reason. They can take it or leave it alone, right? That's not me. Right? But that's how some people are. Some people are just moderate. They just, if they got a really good reason, they can put it down. Okay, the second type is, then we have a certain type that is the hard drinker or hard user. He may have the habit badly enough to gradually impair him physically and mentally. It may cause him to die a few years earlier than before his time. Oh well. If sufficiently strong reason, ill health, falling in love, change of environment, or other warning of or the warning of a doctor becomes operative, this man can also stop or moderate, although he may find it difficult and troublesome and may even need medical attention. Might need a detox or a rehab or something like that. But did you notice there was that word, moderate?
Yeah, I know that. What does that mean?
Right? No comprende. Que moderate. Yeah. But, okay, so that was the second type. Now we have the third type. This is the Mac Daddy. This is it. But what about the real alcoholic? That would be me. Or if you're a crackhead, what about the real crackhead? He may start off as a moderate drinker or user. He may even not become a continuous hard drinker or user. But at some point in the stage of his drinking or using career, he begins to lose all control of his liquor or meth consumption once he starts to drink or use. Here is the fellow who has been puzzling you, especially in his lack of control. He does absurd, incredibly tragic things while drinking or using. He gets a real Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He's the real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He is seldom seen mildly intoxicated. He's always more or less insanely drunk or fucked up. His disposition while drinking resembles his normal nature, but little. He may be one of the finest fellows in the world, but let him drink for a day or get loaded for a day, and he frequently becomes disgustingly and even dangerously antisocial. Sound familiar? Sound familiar? We're not answering the cell phone? You got all the fucking curtains drawn? Peeking out? He has a positive genius for getting tight at exactly the wrong moment, particularly when some important decision must be made or engagement kept, or, you got to go to work. There's that. He is often perfectly sensible, smart person, smart guy, and well-balanced, totally cool, concerning everything else except drugs and alcohol. So, it's us alcoholics, we're like, on many other fronts, we got it together. We're like Mr. Cool. We know how to treat people. But dude, once you add drugs and alcohol into the mix, all bets are off. All bets are off. In that respect, he is incredibly dishonest and selfish. Add drugs and alcohol into this mix, and I become incredibly selfish and dishonest. Remove them, suddenly I'm Mr. Nice Guy. He often possesses special abilities, skills, and aptitudes, and has a promising career ahead of him. He uses his gifts to build up a bright outlook for his family and himself, and then he pulls down the structure over his head by a senseless series of sprees or runs. He is the fellow who goes off to bed so intoxicated he ought to sleep the whole clock round. Yet, early the next morning, he searches madly for the bottle, for the spoon. He misplaced the night before. If he can afford it, he may have liquor concealed all over his house, so to be certain that nobody gets his stash. Hell no. And throw it down the waste pipe or in the toilet. Hell no. As matters grow worse, he begins to use a combination of high-powered sedatives and liquor to quiet his nerves so he can go to work. Or, as matters grow worse, he might try to use more uppers or more downers to counteract his uppers just so he can make it to work. Then comes the day when he simply cannot make it and gets drunk or screwed up or fucked up all over again. Perhaps he goes to a doctor who gives him morphine or pain pills or Ambien or Valium or some sedative for which he can taper off. Then he begins to appear at hospitals and sanitariums and rehabs and Tarzana treatment centers and detoxes and everywhere. This is by no means a comprehensive picture of the true alcoholic, as our behavior patterns vary. But this description should identify him roughly, right? Why does he behave like this? Right? So the description is, we just get worse and worse and worse, and we're just a mess. That's what this is saying. Why does he behave like this? If hundreds of experiences have shown him that one drink, one hit off the pipe, one pill, one smoke of, one blunt, means another debacle with all of its attendant suffering and humiliation, why does he take that one drink? Why can't he stay off the water wagon? What has become of the common sense and willpower that he still sometimes displayed with respect to other matters, right? Can't do it with this drugs and alcohol thing, but making sure the rent's paid on time and that he has enough money for the light bills and it can still happen over there, but what about this thing over here? So perhaps there will never be a full answer to these questions. Opinions vary as to the why the alcoholic reacts differently from normal people. We are not sure why, once a certain point is reached, little can be done for him. We cannot answer the riddle. We know that while the alcoholic keeps away from the drink, as he may do for months or years, he reacts much like other men. Right? So the book is saying, if we do not drink, if we don't do drugs, we react like normal people. Right? That's if we stay away from it. We are equally positive that once he takes any alcohol, whatever, into his system. So we're talking, when it says in the doctor's opinion, cannot safely take alcohol of any type. That means like if pain pills or poppers or, there's a number of different things that we can't necessarily do it safely. Not to say we can't do it, we can't do it safely. Something happens, both bodily and mentally, both in the bodily and mentally sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. The experience of any alcoholic will abundantly confirm this. These observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. Therefore, the main problem of alcohol centers in his mind. Okay, so the book is saying right there, all this stuff, this would be totally like academic. This would be like nothing if the guy didn't take the first drink, right? So it's not the 10th drink that gets you. It's the first one.
It's the first one.
Right. It's not the end of the 8 ball. It's the first fucking hit.
It's the same problem with the motherfuckers that bring donuts to work.
That too.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm great if I don't eat the first one.
Right. So
I'm the only one that eats 7.
Right. My name is Nikas, and I eat donuts alcoholically.
Right. Fuck.
All right. So therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic is in his mind rather than his body, right? So this is the last page that in the book. So page 23, second thing here. This is the last page where drinking is the problem. From this point forward, it's our thinking, not our drinking. Our thinking is the problem. Yeah. So rather than his body, if you ask him why he started on the last bender, the chances are he will offer you any number of 100 alibis. Some of these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them would really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic's drinking or drug use creates. Right? So I meant to do it, or no, but you can't say that I meant to do it when you know just where it's going to go. It's like, because that sort of thinking is like, well, okay, so you said you're never going to do it again, because you know where it always ends up. But then you say, but then I did it again. Okay, well, I'm sorry. That right there, but I did it again. That is a obsessive thought. You are alcohol or drugs bitch. You are the bitch of alcohol or drugs when you make that decision to actually when you say, I got the decision, I'm going to do this. It's not, you're just acting on your alcoholic mind, your obsessive mind. Your obsessive mind tells you, hey, it's going to be like this. And you're like, oh, great, let's do it. I'm going to say yes. But in reality is, your mind has presented you with a lie. It has sold it to you as a truth and you believed it as a truth, and so then you took an action based on what you thought was a truth, and then shit went sideways. It's that simple. They sound they sound like the philosophy of a man who, having a headache, beats himself in the head with a hammer so he doesn't feel the headache. If you draw this fallacious, it sounds kind of sexual. If you draw this fallacious, which just means full of crap reasoning to the attention of an alcoholic, he will laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk. Once in a while, he may tell the truth. And the truth, strange to say, is that he has no more idea why he took that first drink than you. I don't know.
Yeah, I ran out of alibis at some point.
Yeah.
I used to always say, oh, this is what happened. This is what happened. And then finally I just was like, I'm an alcoholic. That's why.
That's right. That's what happened.
They used to always look at me when I had these excuses, and then their look changed, with this. It went from just staring at me to this, like when I finally said I had no reason other than I'm an alcoholic. And they're like, yeah. And before it was just they were just staring.
Well, yeah. Oh no, but you don't understand. It was like this, or no. You would have too if you were me, and it's like, yeah, if I was you and I believed that thought, I would, but I'm not you and I don't believe that way. It's like they were waiting on me to come around to okay, now he finally understands. Before, you could fucking tell him anything because you couldn't tell me anything. Right. All right. Some drinkers have excuses for which they are satisfied part of the time. But in their hearts, they really do know why they do it. They do not. But in their hearts, they really do not know why they do it. Once this malady, this disease, disorder, this ailment really takes hold, they are a baffled lot. I don't know. There is the obsession that somehow, someday, he will beat the game, right? So there's the allergy, right, which is the body, and the obsession, which is the mind. So, it's talking about the obsession. There's the obsession that someday I'll be able to beat this thing. There's got to be some way around this. There's got to be some loophole. There's got to be something I can do where I can make this still work. Something. It's like, we always hold this reservation. I was told that a reservation is holding a place in time in the future. So like when you make a dinner reservation, right? It's like you call a restaurant and you say, hey, I'd like to 7 p.m. on Friday. You've held a reservation for some time in the future. And that's what we do when we've got these obsessive thoughts. It's like, well, there's got to be a way. So I have this reservation of at some point in the future, I'll figure this out. Let me get to it. But they often suspect that they are down for the count. How true this is, few realize. In a vague way, their families and friends sense that these drinkers are abnormal. Abnormal means what? Not normal. But everybody hopefully awaits the day when the sufferer will arouse himself from his lethargy and assert his power of will over his drug and alcohol problem. However, the book says, the tragic truth is that if the man be a real alcoholic, right? So that was the three different types of alcoholism, right? The last type, the real one, the happy day may not arrive. He has lost control. At a certain point in the drinking career of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. This tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it's suspected. So this is the top of page 24. Bam, right? And I have it all super highlighted. The next part's squiggly writing, but I have powerless here. So this is the definition of powerless. This is the thing that, if anybody ever comes up to you and say, what does it mean I'm powerless? You refer to page 24, first full paragraph, and you tell them this. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, that just means like haven't been figured out yet, have lost the power of choice in drink. So the fact is that most alcoholics have lost the power in choice. That means the power of you saying yes or you saying no to the drink is not yours. Our solution, our so-called willpower, becomes practically non-existent. So our willpower is that thing that, you know, we go through life and do, I'm not going to do that. Right? No, I'm not going to do that. But the problem with willpower is I can make a decision not to do something, but then if my head goes like, oh, squirrel, or I see my favorite color shiny, my attention leaves my willpower. I'm great at willpower when my attention is absolutely focused, but the problem is I can't stay absolutely focused because I'm always going somewhere else. So our willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times, usually the most important times, to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. So we know it's bad for us. We know we said we're never going to do it again. There's absolutely we just want our willpower to work, right? And then all of a sudden somebody pushes a drink our way or fucking hits us, hands us the bong or whatever your drug of choice is, and we just do it. You know, because we are, you know, the whole idea of just play the tape through, just play the tape, I don't know about you, but when somebody's
I fucking hated that.
when somebody's handing me, you know, like a syringe full of dope or a really yummy fucking margarita or, you know, a handful of pills, I'm not thinking about playing the tape.
No.
I'm thinking about what that's going to feel like when it hits my body. It says in the doctor's opinion, the sense of ease and comfort that comes at once by taking the first whatever. That's what I'm thinking about, not playing the tape through.
I first got sober, my first sponsor this last time getting sober was like, you're not allowed to think for the first 6 months. And it was because I had so many relapses. And, you know, he's like, he told me, you think your way straight into relapse.
Yeah.
And that's why I tell people, like, you know, playing the tape through, that might work, you know, sometime down the road. But right now,
yeah,
for me, within my first year was like all my other relapses were, I played the tape through and I lost.
Yeah.
Because the drugs were like, if I can just get him to think about me, I got him.
Right.
Regardless of what circumstances he thinks about, I got him. And that was the way it was.
Yeah. So, again, this is page 24. This is the squiggly righty party. This is the powerless. You know, this is the reason that we need to find a power greater than ourselves is because we don't have the power. We can't do it. We have lost the power and choice. So we're going to be looking to something outside of us that's going to help give us this choice, right? So why do we need to find a higher power? Because at a certain point in everybody's history, we've lost the power and choice. So, okay. The almost certain consequences that follow taking even a glass of beer, even the tiniest of lines. You know, it's like if you're a meth addict and you take a little, what's that? The Adderall. You take one little teeny tiny Adderall. But I use this over here. If I take that, right, I'm off. The almost certain consequence that follows taking even a glass of beer or one Adderall do not crowd into the mind or deter us. If these thoughts occur, they are hazy and readily supplanted, right? Supplanted just means like, oh, I could move that shit out and put another thought in here. With the old threadbare idea that this one, Nikas, this time it's going to be different. We shall handle ourselves like other people. Nikas, we can do this. Come on, just show it. Nobody will know. Nikas. This is all happening inside my fucking head. There is a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on a hot stove. I don't care. Ah! The alcoholic might say to himself, in the most casual way, it won't burn me this time. Here's how. Or perhaps he doesn't even think of it at all. How often have some of us began to drink or use in this nonchalant way? And after the third or fourth or 8-ball pounded on the bar, dialing the phone to the dealer, and said to ourselves, for God's sakes, how did I ever fucking get started again? Only to have that thought supplanted by, well, I'm fucked up now, so what does it say? I'll stop with the next one. Or, what's the use? I'm loaded. Might as well get good and loaded now. What's that word? Fuck it. We got a case of fuck it.
Fuck it.
So, when this sort of thinking, right? So we're not talking drinking, we're talking thinking. We don't have a drinking problem, we have a thinking problem. We don't have a drug problem, we got a thinking problem. When this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he probably has placed himself beyond human aid. Everybody highlight that, underline it, whatever. Beyond human aid. So beyond human aid just simply means that there is no human power that could relieve your alcoholism, right? Your mommy, your daddy, the judge, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your wife, your kids. Oh wait, and not even you. Wait, I can't? But no human power could relieve your alcoholism because you are what is called, you've been placed beyond human aid. There's no human power. Nothing. That's a huge pill to swallow. Because we're always looking for, and I tell people, dude, go out and fucking do every smart recovery or refuge recovery. I mean, try everything. Turn over every fucking rock before you end up in AA. Because you don't want to get here and think, oh, maybe I should. No. Go fucking do your homework. Go see if there's some other way to do this thing. Because if there is, and it works for you, amen. Our hats are off to you. Great, bye. But if you do it and it doesn't work, great. We've got the fucking solution. We've got what it takes right here. So, beyond human aid. And unless locked up, may die or go permanently insane. These stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history. But for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop, but cannot. Okay, so last page is the powerless page, right? Now we're on to page 25. This is the solution page. Solution, highlight. Blah, blah, blah. I'm so gay. All different colors. Shit. All right. There is a solution. Almost none of us liked the self-searching, the leveling of our pride. Who the fuck wants their pride leveled? What kind of fucking self-centered person wants to lose their pride? Nobody. The confessions of our shortcomings, which the process requires. That's a requirement, like a must do for its successful consummation. But we saw that it really worked in others, right? So, I showed up at fucking AA. I did not want what these motherfuckers got. I really didn't. I thought this was like a cult full of people. They were all wearing ugly clothes. They all had bad haircuts. I mean, they were like, no, I don't want none of the, But the reality was, every week I'd come to these meetings, they all were sober, but I wasn't. Right. That was the truth. My life was going the drain while theirs was going somewhere. And that was a hard pill to swallow. So when we saw it really work in others, and we had come to believe in a hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it, when we were approached by those in which the problem had been solved. There's that word again, solved. Solved means there's no more problem. If an answer is solved, it's finished. Right? So life is like hopeless the way I'm doing it. And I come to this AA thing and I see all these people and they're telling me they got this thing, and then they approach to me. There was nothing left for us to do but pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools that those people I didn't like, they laid at my feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence, of which we had not even dreamed. So they're pointing you there at the spirit. So it's bad, it's yucky. You're gonna have to do stuff you don't want to do, right? The simple but not easy. Simple means any ding dong can do it. Easy means it requires effort. And so yes, this whole thing, right? This spiritual kiss. Now, but what it's hinting at here in that last line is, if you actually do this, you might actually get rocketed in this fourth dimension. Just throwing that in there. And then it says, the great fact. This is the great fact. The great fact is this, and nothing less. We have had deep and effective spiritual experiences. Then there's that asterisk, which is the spiritual experience back in the back of the book. We'll stay in the front of the book for this point. But I want to define effective real quick. So I looked up, in my home group in San Francisco, this SFPOA meeting, somebody would pick a phrase or a line or a reading out of the big book. And so one day, somebody just said, the great fact is this and nothing less. We have had deep and effective spiritual experiences. It's revolutionized our whole world attitude towards life, towards fellows, and towards God's universe. Meeting's open. I was like, what? Okay. So, I'm sitting there and I'm like reading through my, using my dictionary or my app on my phone, actually. And I'm like, okay, well, what is deep and effective? What does effective mean? So, and I looked up, and effective simply means in operation, right? So if a force field is effective, the force field is in operation or in effect. It's actually working. Like in Star Wars, when they got their force fields up, right? Things just boom, 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 bounce off. Alcohol and drugs just bounce off, right? Because they got the force field in effect. But if their shields are down, Scotty, shields are down. The force field's not in effect, so you're going to take direct impact. You don't have this spiritual shield. You don't have this grace of God, right? So the deal is, we're going to seek something that's greater than us, that this thing's going to kind of step in, and it's going to give us a little time and space and distance between somebody handing us stuff and us going, okay. It's going to go, oh. When we're restored to sanity, it just simply means somebody hands us a bag of drugs, we go, oh, thank you. I don't do drugs anymore. We hand them back. What? What kind of crazy is that? Well, that's what a spiritual defense is. Because you have been restored to sanity just simply means somebody hands you a bag of drugs and you're like, oh my goodness, that looks like trouble. No, thank you. And you hand it right back. That's it. You're not angry at that person. That's just the truth is, I can't do that. That's what being restored to sanity is. And that comes from having a daily practice, having some daily discipline, and allowing God to work in and through my life. So, all right. So that's the effective just means in effect, which have revolutionized our whole attitude towards life, towards our fellows, and towards God's universe. So that word revolutionary, means marked by a sudden or momentous change in a situation. So like in a let's say North Korea. In North Korea, they have a revolution, right? So Kim Jong-un's in power right now, right? If there's a revolution, what happens? Kim Jong-un gets thrown out, and a new power comes in and governs North Korea. So what happens in this whole spiritual experiencing is, so when I'm selfish, self-seeking, self-centered, when it's all about me, I'm running the show. But all of a sudden this revolution happens, I get freaking thrown out, and all of a sudden God steps in and is like, dude, I got this shit. Back up. Get in the back seat, motherfucker. You don't drive so well. Get out. So, that's what a revolution is. And so that revolution affects the way we look at our life, to other people, and to everything in God's universe. The central fact, there's the great fact, and here's the central fact, of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. So how does this miracle present itself? Well, He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never have done by ourselves. So let's back it up to the beginning of that sentence. It says, the central fact in our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered. So that central fact just comes from the when you show up here and you're willing to do what you're told, you're willing to have this to start to develop and nurture this relationship with a power greater than you, and then all of a sudden this power greater than you is kind of giving you like telling you do this, do that, don't do that, and all of a sudden you're like things are like working out really well, and you're feeling like you're like in the groove. It's like, wow, life is really freaking, wow, this actually really works, and you're amazed because you know that if it was left to you, you'd be loaded. But now you're not loaded and things are actually working out really well, and you're not overconfident about it because you realize somehow, wow, this, God's actually doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. Like in all areas of my life, not just not picking up or not using, but like I'm not yelling at this person. I'm not fucking flipping this person off while I'm driving. It's like, wow, there's so much more that's happening here in this thing. And so that's the way He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could not do by ourselves. If you are seriously alcoholic or drug addict, as we are, we believe there is no middle of the road solution. So if you identify yourself as a real alcoholic, not a medium or, I can't remember those words, but you could identify yourself as a real alcoholic, we don't think there's any middle of the road solution. We were in a position where life was becoming impossible. And if we had passed into the region from which there is no return through human aid, we had but two alternatives, right? So life was bad. When I get to AA and I share at a meeting, I don't usually tell my horror stories because you know what? Everybody's got horror stories, right? I'm here to tell you, the way in which I discovered God and how this thing is working in my life. What I was like was a mess and I had to get sober. What happened was I showed up here and some people said, hey, God. And I was like, I'm not sure about all that, but let me see. But then alcohol and drugs beat me into a state of reasonableness. And finally I said, okay, I'll try this prayer and meditation thing. And I'll be darned, something happened. It worked. So we show up here, life's impossible, and if we pass through the region from which there is no return by human aid, we have but two alternatives. The first alternative is, one, we go on to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation as best we can. That means getting as loaded as you can, getting torched up as you can, getting fucking slammed up as you can, as many pills as you can, drunk as you can, just like oblivion. Just oblivion. I can't, no, I don't want to think about it. I just want to get screwed up. That's number one. Number two, on the other hand, to accept spiritual help. So those are your two options. Not necessarily the best options when you get here. Go on to the end, fucking blot it out, or accept spiritual help. Here you go. This is what we're offering. This we did not do, or this we did because we honestly wanted to and were willing to make an effort. So this is the point where I ask somebody, I says, do you have a problem with drugs and alcohol? And if they say, yeah, I do. Okay. Then the next question is, do you want to do something about it? Yeah, yes, I do. Okay. So then are you willing to go to any lengths? That's the third qualifying questions. And if the answer to that, what's that? Yeah. And if the answer is yes, I'm willing to go to any lengths, then
because I said yes to that question so many times, and I was so full of shit. Now when I like my favorite answer to that question is I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my favorite answer. Yeah. I was like, oh, I know you're honest.
Yeah. And I somebody says I don't know. I said, well, great, go find out. Because really, I mean, the truth is, like, I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to chase you down to give you something you don't want, right?
Oh yeah, we don't have to though. My last sponsor coming in, he asked me that, and I said, I really don't know if I want this. But it was the most honest I've ever been. It was based out of the evidence that I said yes so many times,
right?
And me not claiming this conviction over my desire for sobriety, I think, I don't know if it helped me or not, but it displayed my readiness.
Yeah.
Because
and that's, I think, what a good sponsor.
I wanted my actions to prove that I was ready, not my conviction.
Yes. And like Rachel Mann always says, don't watch what they say, watch what they do.
Exactly.
You know, and that, as a good sponsor, we don't judge them. We just mirror back to them. So you're saying this, but this is what you're doing. Which is it?
Right.
So this is that. I mean, because I hear, of course you want, but you're not showing it. So what is it? You know, and that's what good sponsorship is always about, just asking the person, you know, getting the person to think. Because if they're not ready, they're not ready, and that's totally cool, totally fine. But it says, you know, it just says, this we did, right? We accept the spiritual help. Why do we expect it? Because we honestly wanted to. We were actually really fucking ready. And we were willing to make the effort. Super important. If somebody's not willing to make the effort, they're not willing to go to any lengths, it's just not worth working with them. Because, you know, it's like you're going to be chasing them down. You'll be unhappy. They'll be unhappy. You know? Yeah, so. Okay, so. This is the end of There is a Solution chapter. We've identified the problem, the powerlessness. We've identified the solution. Now, let's talk about this guy named Roland Hazard. A certain American businessman, this guy Roland Hazard, had ability, good sense, and high character. For years, he had floundered from one sanitarium to another. He had consulted the best-known American psychiatrists. Then he had gone to Europe, placing himself in the care of the celebrated physician, the psychiatrist Dr. Jung. Roland Hazard was a really, really rich guy, and the way the story goes is that he actually went to Freud here in America, right? And asked for, and Freud was too busy, can't do it. So,
his protege.
So the interesting thing about Freud, so Freud is, Freudian psychology has absolutely no higher powerness to it.
Right.
There's no God, there's no spiritual, there's no divine, no divinity. That's Freudian is like, no. So as God would have it, this guy, Roland Hazard, was directed to go to Carl Jung. And so Carl Jung is who gave us the solution. So the solution is a vital spiritual experience. The problem is we have alcoholism, right? Which presents the two-part disease. The solution for our problem is a vital spiritual experience. And the vital spiritual experience was given to us by Carl Jung, non-alcoholic. Who gave us the problem? That was Dr. Silkworth, non-alcoholic. The solution was given to us by Dr. Jung, another non-alcoholic. And it turns out that Roland Hazard went to see Dr. Jung because the first guy can't take it. Sorry. So,
it's funny because Freud was Jung's mentor for years, and the whole higher power thing and the divinity and the psychic and psychological connection. Freud couldn't deal with.
And to this day, Freudian psychology and Jungian psychology, they're very divergent. They are not the same. And because Jungian psych is there is something greater than. There is a divinity. There is this spiritual aspect to stuff. There is this higher powerness. And Jung, knew that. And so it's very interesting that our AA ended up going with Jung rather than Freud. So, the celebrated psychiatrist Dr. Jung, who prescribed for him. Though experience had made him skeptical, he finished his treatments with unusual confidence. So he went to Dr. Jung and he says, "Hey, Dr. Jung, I'm an alcoholic. You got to see me. And Dr. Jung was like, dude, I'm going to be traveling all throughout Europe, and I can't take it. And he's like, here's the deal. I'm super rich. How about I just follow you everywhere you go, and like you be my shrink, and everywhere. You know, we'll go to Geneva, we'll go to Switzerland. Oh yeah. And he's like, and Jung's like, okay, sure. So a year, Roland Hazard spent on the road with Dr. Jung, going all throughout Europe, right? A year. His physical and mental condition were unusually good after completing his treatment. Above all, he believed, Roland Hazard believed, that he had acquired such a profound knowledge of the inner workings of his mind and hidden triggers, that relapse was unthinkable. Of course. Nevertheless, he was drunk in a short time. More baffling still, he could give himself no satisfactory explanation for his fall. Right? So he just did a year of psychotherapy, a year of like working out, totally knew like every fucking part of the inside of his mind, everywhere he could go wrong, and yet he just got loaded and couldn't figure out why. Totally just didn't.
That's what happened to me. That's when I surrendered, is because I don't know if me dying had anything to do with it, but yeah. I became fully self-aware that I have faced every method and madness of my drinking and using, and everything failed me, and that it was time to start doing what people told me to do.
Yeah. So he returned to the doctor, right? So he left service, he was out of treatment, went on his own, got fucking loaded, and went back to the doctor and was like, yo, Dr. Jung, whom he admired. And so he asked him point blank why he could not recover. So, Dr. Jung, what the hell is wrong with me? Why can't I recover? He wished above all things to regain self-control. He seemed quite rational and well-balanced with respect to any other problem, yet he had no control, zero, zip, over alcohol. Why was this? He begged the doctor to tell him the whole truth, and he got it. In the doctor's judgment, he was utterly hopeless. That means like extra hopeless. That's like extra hopeless with like side of dipping sauce. It's like supersized, yucky, hopeless. He could never. That's a harsh word. Never. I prefer solve, but never. He could never regain his position in society, as he would have to place himself under lock and key or hire a bodyguard if he's expected to live long. That was the great physician's opinion. Imagine you're sitting across this lovely table in this great office. You got all the money in the fucking world, and this is what the guy says: "Is dude, you got to go lock your fucking self up, get some bodyguards, and wait for the end. It's coming." What? But the big old but. But this man still lives, and he is a free man. No bodyguards, no sight, no locked up. He does not need a bodyguard, nor is he confined. He can go anywhere on this earth where other free men go without disaster, provided he remains willing to maintain a certain simple attitude. What attitude's that? Thy will be done, not mine. Some of our alcoholic readers will think that they can do without spiritual help. Let us tell you the rest of our conversation our friend had with the doctor. The doctor said this: "You have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. I have never seen one case recover where the state of mind exists to the extent that it does in you." Our friend felt as though the gates of hell closed on him with a clank. Clink. He said to the doctor, "Are there no exceptions?" "Yes," the doctor replied. "There is. Exceptions to cases such as yours have been occurring since early times. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have had what's called vital spiritual experiences. Highlight, underline, blah, 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 whatever. Vital spiritual experiences. That is the solution that the doctor has to suggest. And the solution in our book is a vital spiritual experience. To me, these occurrences are a phenomena. A phenomenon is an unexplainable occurrence, right? So the doctor is saying, the guy with the degree hanging on the wall is saying, yeah, so these occurrences, yeah, they're a phenomena. Like, yeah, they're unexplainable. I can't tell you why. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements, right? So what do we call it before? A revolution, right? A revolution happens inside these people. A spiritual revolution happens. Ideas, emotions, attitudes, which were once the guiding force of the lives of these men, are suddenly cast to the side, thrown out the window. And a completely new set of concepts, conceptions, and motives begin to dominate them. Sounds like a revolution right there to me. In fact, I have been trying to produce some such emotional rearrangement with you. With many individuals, the methods I employ are successful, but I have never been successful with an alcoholic of your description, of your hopeless ass. Upon hearing this, our friend was somewhat relieved, for he had reflected that after all, he was a good church member. This hope, however, was destroyed by the doctors telling him that while his religious convictions were very good, in his case, they did not spell the necessary vital spiritual experience. What does vital mean? You're a nurse. What is vital signs? What are your vitals?
Vitals are, you can't live without them.
There we go. So the necessary vital spiritual experience means you cannot live without what?
Spiritual experience.
Amen. There you go.
Spiritual health.
Yeah. Here was the terrible dilemma in which our friend found himself when he had the extraordinary experience for which we have already told you, as we have already told you, made him a free man. We in turn sought the same escape with all the desperation of drowning men. What seemed at first a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God. A new life has been given us, or if you prefer, a design for living that really works, right? So we don't want to make this complicated. We don't get too, Jesus freak here. This, it starts to get real sappy with the whole God thing. Or look, you just say this design for living that really, really works. This thing works. The distinguished American psychologist William James, in his book Varieties of Religious Experience, indicates a multiple of ways in which men have discovered God. We, Alcoholics Anonymous, has no desire to convince anyone that there is only one way in which faith can be acquired. If what we have learned and felt and seen means anything at all, it means that all of us, whatever our race, creed, or color, are children of a living Creator with whom we may form a relationship upon simple and understandable terms as soon as we're willing to be honest enough to try. So, there is a solution. What's the solution? A vital spiritual experience. How does this vital spiritual experience express itself? Well, express itself in this relationship with this Creator. How am I going to develop this relationship? Through prayer and meditation. When do I got to start doing that? How about as soon as possible? How about like right now? Right? Because this relationship, it's like any relationship. How do you develop a great relationship with your mom? Do you develop a great relationship with your mom by not calling, by not sending her flowers, by not sending her Mother's Day gifts? No. You don't. And then all of a sudden you call mom. Hey mom, would you pay my rent?
Hell no.
No. So this is a relationship that we're building, right? This is so there is something out there that once I got over myself and said, okay, I'll try. Once I got over my big old bad self and I tried, I saw that something did happen when I actually reached out. When I reached out my hand, something fucking grabbed me in the middle of the night. And I wasn't at the bathhouse. Yeah, I have to actually try to make this relationship happen. But once I actually see that by actually making the effort, this thing actually is working with me constantly, and I see this is a working relationship. This relationship works if I work at it, right? God could and would if he were sought. The if is the conditional word. He can and won't if you don't. If you do, he can. If you don't, he won't. It's that simple. But once we get over our big bad self and we actually try, we make the effort, we see that something actually works. We develop this working relationship. And so when you have a great relationship with your mom or God, and you say, hey, I'm a little short on rent. Sure. It just gets given. It's just like, it's like any other relationship that you have on human terms. It's like, you gotta be willing to not be selfish. You gotta be willing to ask, to listen, to do, and then say thank you. It's like, hey, Dad, can I borrow the car to go to the roller skating rink? Sure. I asked. I listened. He said yes. He said yes, and so then I did, and I borrowed the car. I made sure that I filled the car up with gas. I made sure that it was clean. I made sure I didn't leave a fucking bunch of crap in it. I made sure that it was parked back in there, and just like I left that car like it was like it was mine. I left it back for him, full of gas. Had the keys, handed it back to him before midnight. And then at the end of the day, I said thank you, Dad. And guess what? I got to use the car a lot. All my friends didn't, but I did. And that's the sort of working relationship that we're going for here. We want a relationship that's actually, it's beneficial for everybody. So, those having religious affiliations will find here nothing disturbing to their beliefs or ceremonies. There is no friction among us over such matters. So, doesn't matter what you call your God, where you worship your God, how you worship your God. It matters that you actually have a God and that you actually do some worshiping, right? But we're not concerned. Nothing we're suggesting is going to interfere with what you're already doing. You do what you do, right? That's all good. And then it says, we think it no concern of ours what religious bodies our members identify themselves with as individuals. This should be an entirely personal affair. So in the third step, when it says a God of your understanding, that means your decision, not us. We're not looking to tell you what to do or how to do it. We're just telling you need to find this thing called God, right? So this should be an entirely personal affair, which each one of us decides for himself in the light of past associations, perhaps, or is your present choice. Not all of us join religious bodies, but most of us favor such memberships. And I think that's a very important part of the book here, because most people. Now I'm not guided to go to church, but I tell you what, there's like Refuge Recovery has some great meditations. I love that. I consider myself to be of the Buddhisty sort of, like that sort of thing. So going to like the Zen Center, going to Dharma talks. Refuge Recovery there's a bunch of beautiful parts of that. We just to have the group meditations and to be in Sangha, which is just in fellowship with other people. I find that you have to, if you are guided, if something says, hey, go check that out, go check it out. Go check it out. You just never know. I ended up, early in my sobriety, I ended up joining this organization called the Oneness Blessing Group, which is just a hands-on, non-denominational blessing where my dad said, hey, have you heard about this Oneness Blessing, Nikas? And I was like, no. He says, go check it out. They're in San Francisco. Go check it out. People are like waking up left and right in their presence. I was like, okay. So I went and checked it out, and it's about 60 people sitting in a circle. People come over, they're blessing givers. They put their hands on your head, just ever so gently. Nothing, and they offer you a blessing. And the way that they describe it was, it's a non-denominational blessing, right? There's no God to this that's denominational. A non-denominational blessing. And what they're doing is they're just offering this blessing which is basically that your idea of a higher power, right? Mine, work in and through them in this blessing. And I was like, all right, that doesn't sound like hokey pokey witchcraft, or it's like I could get down with that, because I'm trying to find what my connection is. And so what you're offering is for a hands-on, like you're gonna hold space for my connection to work through them, like supercharge. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. So I did that for a couple times, and when they put their hands on their head, I felt something. My whole body felt something. And after about 6 months, I ended up becoming a blessing giver. And I'll tell you, learning how to allow other people's higher power to move in and through you is one of the most incredible things I've ever experienced in my whole life. And it's, I can only tell you that the feeling that I felt was electricity. It was heat. It was warmth. It was love, and it was real. I just, from the authority of my own experience, I can tell you, it really, something happened. Something was really happening. And so I was going every Sunday night to this thing where I was just in service to another human being. As alcoholics, what do? We are in service to another alcoholic. We're helping other alcoholics. As human beings doing this blessing thing, we're just human beings offering other human beings the blessing. And the basic blessing is that your higher power awaken you in whatever way your higher power sees fit. Nothing to do with what I want. Yours. All you. And I'll tell you, so I got turned on to that thing, and I went, and I'll tell you, the year that I spent in San Francisco before I moved, the year that I spent in that Oneness Blessing group, I would receive all these blessings, and then all of a sudden I would start processing emotion. And there was like an altar and like some cushions, and I would just go and I would just cry, and I would cry, and all this emotion would just come up and just like come out, and just like, and I would just sit there, and there's a group of, there's music on and everything. So, I was noisy. I was really noisy, just crying and just sobbing. And what I realized was, like, I was processing all this repressed Nikas yuck was finally having an opportunity to be expressed, just given space, just given an opportunity and space to allow itself to just come out. And I'm telling you, over the course of that year, so much stuff came up and out. And, at the end of it, I wasn't even sure if I was processing. Maybe I was processing other people's. Who knows? I just knew that I was totally available for processing, my own or anybody. It doesn't matter. Yep, that's what I do. And I think it was a huge part of my spiritual maturation was the willingness to go outside of AA and find something that worked. So that's what the point is poking at here. If you get guided to go somewhere, to pick up a book, to read Adi Ashanti, to read Krishnamurti, if you get guided to Eckhart Tolle, if you get guided to read these things, read them. There's that wonderful the Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz. If you get the internal movement, do this, do it. Because that's what this whole thing is about. It's about developing and nurturing this spiritualness to us, right? Because we all know how to be selfish. We know how to be self-seeking. We know how to be like, but it's like, but when we open ourselves to this other thing, it's like it's kind of like we lay ourselves raw to not know, And it's really in that not knowing that we spiritually mature, that we can move forward. So, the book says, doesn't matter what or how or where, but go try it. In the following chapter, there appears an explanation of alcoholism as we understand it. There is a chapter addressed to the agnostic, right? Agnostic is not the atheist, but the agnostic. Ag without gnostic knowledge, without knowledge. So, chapter addressed to the agnostic. Many who once were in this class are now amongst, many who were in this class are now amongst our members. Surprisingly enough, we find such convictions no great obstacles. Nope. To a spiritual experience. Nope, no problem. God can totally deal with that. Further on, clear-cut directions. Notice it doesn't say suggestions. Clear-cut directions are given showing how we recovered. These are followed by 43 personal experiences. Each individual, and this is the part I think I read at the beginning, each individual in the personal stories in the back of the book, right, or in Bill's story, or when we share from the podium, this is what they're telling you. You know, where people say, oh, I'm just going to use the format. What it was like, what happened, what it's like now. If you're going to use a format, use this format. Each individual in their personal stories describes in his own language and from his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God. These give a fair cross-section of our membership and a clear-cut idea of what actually happened in our lives. We hope no one will consider these self-revealings account in bad taste. Our hope is that many alcoholic men and women desperately in need will see these pages and believe that it is only by fully disclosing ourselves and our problems that they will be persuaded to say, yep, I'm one of them too. I gotta have that thing. So that is the chapter. There is a solution, right? The solution is that we need to find this vital spiritual experience. Vital just means necessary for life. And spiritual experience just means coming into some sort of relationship with this higher thing that we don't need to understand. You know, the God of your understanding can also be the God of your non-understanding. You know, but what's required? Read the steps. It's pretty much it's required. So you know, if you're not willing yet, go try the other way. You know, and meaning like go get loaded. But check every other rock. Check every other program. Check every what we call rational. There's so many different types of, you know, don't stop all the way, like only stop a little bit. Try all that stuff. See how that works. If that doesn't work, then this solution we are sure will work for you. So hang tight. I'm gonna just end this right here. Good to see everybody. Ciao.